Schmidt, and luckily that number is retired, and it will stay retired, as well it should, number 56. Well, Joe helped Detroit to its second straight NFL title as a rookie. In 1953, he was the top defensive player in the NFL. In fact, he would win that award 4 times. And we're talking about salaries today in the National Football League and financial situation that the players are in today versus back in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. His 1957 salary, just point of interest, was $11,000. $11,000. I think they make that per play today. But he finished up his playing career in 1965. He had 10 Pro Bowls, and of course he led the Lions to a couple of NFL championships, and would later become the head coach of the Detroit Lions. That was in 1967, replaced Jerry Gilmer, and then stepped down in 1973, was quoted as saying, "Coaching isn't fun anymore." Imagine what he can think today. Well, he was elected to the National Football League Hall of Fame, and we're happy to have him in Detroit. So please welcome Joe Schmidt.
Thank you very much. I had a little difficulty getting here this evening. A little old, I guess I'm a little senile, but my wife and my daughter directed me here, and we were, I don't know where we were, to tell you the truth. We finally got here, and after much deliberation and verbal abuse at the wheel, but I'm very honored to be among this great group of athletes. The city of Detroit has been very, very kind to me over these years. Actually, I've been here, I guess, like 56 or 57 years. I hate to, turn up my age, but I guess you just have to look at me and say that guy is pretty goddamn old. But anyhow, I was very fortunate to be able to play with great group of guys. In 1953 I came here, and we won a championship. In 53 and 54 we should have won it. 56 we should have won again. In 57 we won. 62 we should have won. But again, that's looking back and wishing. I've been very, very, very fortunate. Again, the people of this town have just been so kind to me in regards to I played, I coached, and also my business career. I've had an awful great relationship with all the guys I played with. I wouldn't be up here tonight if I was able to jump on the pile on top of their backs and make the tackle and be looked at as a great linebacker. But I was sort of a new position, and I happened to evolve into it. And it was sort of kind of neat because I played that in high school, I played in college, so it wasn't really anything big to me. I was able to adjust to it very easily. But anyhow, I would like to say one thing here and give this gentleman recognition is Mike Ditka for his leadership in regards to creating monies for our group of guys that played during our time, Darnay Fund and so forth. Mike is very instrumental and very good in that respect. And Mike, I congratulate you and God bless you for your efforts and what you've done. Again, I'm very humbled to be among these great guys, and I just hope the Detroit Lions this year, I have a feeling about them that they're on the verge of coming out of their shell, so to speak. The coach seems to be like he really knows what he's doing. He's a nice young man, sincerity, and he has, I think, the emotional stability, and I think that group have received through the drafts some very good football players. So hopefully that they'll blossom into a contending football team and lead us back to where we should be. So thank you very much. It's wonderful being here.
Usually we have good-looking girls handing out the awards. It was going to be Ron Rice instead. But he's a good-looking guy, wouldn't you say? What do you think? He's a good-looking guy. Our next honoree, this guy is just one of my favorites. I mean, he's a friend and a godly man, and was one of the greatest to ever wear a Detroit Lions uniform. Lynn Barney was named the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year and played in the Pro Bowl. He would do that 6 more times. First pass thrown his way was by some guy named Bart Starr, and Lynn Barney picked it off and took it back for a touchdown. And he would do that many times. He scored 11 touchdowns throughout his career. His career included 56 interceptions. He still looks like he could play today, frankly. Lynn was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1992 and named by the Sporting News as one of the NFL's all-time top 100 players in history. And we consider him one of our top. He was one of 3 great Detroit Lions to wear number 20, and he was the first to wear number 20 as well he should be. So welcome the great and the well-dressed Lynn Barney.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you very much, Mark. There's an old adage that simply states, if you ever see a turtle on a fence post, you can best believe he didn't get there by himself. And I feel like that turtle tonight because I had some great assistance in getting me to this juncture for awards such as this. Coach Schmidt, I still have great fondness and love and adoration and respect for him. When I first came up to Detroit in 1967, I believe retention serves me well. I got here the 3rd day of the riot in 1960. Now most of you are too young to remember that. But I got here the 3rd day of the riot reporting the training camp, and someone found an article where Coach Schmidt said, yeah, we got a pretty good guy, but I don't think he's going to be a starter. So I set myself to make Coach wrong, and I think Coach is, he's been one of my dearest friends since being here 43 years in this Great Lakes State. But Coach had a tremendous impact on my career, and another guy who's made his transition a number of years ago, a couple of years ago, Jimmy David, who played along with Coach in the 53 and the 57 championship team, had a tremendous impact on my life as a defensive back. He played defensive back as well, 6-time Pro Bowler. He should truly be a Hall of Famer. And I think he is a Hall of Famer. He's enshrined now in God's Hall of Fame. But the players that I had the occasion to play with, you'll meet a lot of them tonight. Lucci, Charlie Sanders, Mel Farr, Bill Munson, may his soul rest in peace, great Greg Landry, Aleco Karras, Alex Karras. It was just a joy for me to have had that occasion, because these are men that I had the opportunity during the Thanksgiving Day game to watch Green Bay and Detroit play ball, and I found myself drafted by the Detroit Lions. So been in this great city this great state of the Great Lakes for 43 years, and I don't know where the Lord is taking me next, but wherever He's going to take me, I'll always remember the Detroit Lions. God bless you.
By the way, Lynn was also a movie star in 2 different movies. Paper Lion, of course, I think everybody's probably seen that. How many people here have seen Black 6? Charlie, Lim, Bear Bing. You gotta get it. I'm gonna go home and get it. If I can find, where do you find that, by the way? Blockbuster still has it, do they? Our next honoree, I certainly respect him for his career in the National Football League, but as a football play-by-play man, there is no better than Pat Summerall. He is the best. And he's got one of those voices, when you hear it, it just makes you feel good. And Pat Summerall is here tonight, and he is from Lake City, Florida. Played college football at the University of Arkansas, and then on to the National Football League, mostly as a place kicker. Detroit Lions, in fact, drafted him back in the 4th round, back in the 1952 draft, and then he broke his arm, and that was basically his career with the Detroit Lions. And then went on to play for the Chicago Cardinals, and then, where we know him best, the New York Football Giants. After retiring from football, he became a broadcaster, of course, for CBS Sports, worked with the late great Tom Brookshire, and then on with the great John Madden, moved over to Fox, and we still hear Pat's great mellifluous tones doing golf. I tell you what, in addition to the best football play-by-play guy, he's also the best golf announcer ever. And he was inducted in 1994, received the People's Radio Television Award given out by the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and well deserved. Since about 2006, the Pat Summerall Award has been presented at the annual Legends for Charity Luncheon given on Super Bowl weekend in the host city. That award is given to a deserving recipient who, throughout their career, has demonstrated character, integrity, leadership, both on and off the field. And of course, that is exactly what Pat Summerall is all about. So welcome to Detroit, Pat Summerall.
As was mentioned, I was lucky enough to be drafted by the Lions. I've often wondered what would have happened if I had spent my entire career with the Lions. That was a first-class outfit. It was the big leagues, and it was like everything you expected it to be when I was here. They had players like Leon Hart, Doak Walker, Bobby Lane. Joe Schmidt joined us my second year. As always, he was full of class then and class now. I think special thanks and recognition need to go to Mike Ditka and his efforts that have been made, as Joe mentioned, in behalf of those of us who played this game and who walked away, sometimes walked away with good health, sometimes didn't. But those who haven't really need your attention and your help. And I congratulate Mike Ditka for his efforts in that direction. Thank you, Mike, very much. I remember I was one of 4 kickers that they had with the Lions when I was here. Doak Walker kicked from 30 yards in. From 30 to 40, Pat Harder kicked. From 40 to 50, Jim Martin kicked. Anything outside of 50, I got to try. So that's one of the reasons I left very shortly. I'll never forget the years that I spent here meeting Joe, playing with Joe for that brief period of time when my second year was in progress. I admire the work that he has done and the man he's become, and I admired him as a player at that time. I thank you very much for this recognition. I don't deserve it, but as Darrell Royal said when I presented him an award in Texas, Darrell Royal, of course, the late Texas coach, said, "I don't deserve this award, but on the other hand, I got arthritis too, and I don't deserve that either." So, thank you very much.
Frankly, I'd rather have Pat MC the rest of this. I'd rather hear him than hear me. Our next honoree is Lloyd Carr, who was born in good old Hawkins County, Tennessee. I don't think I've ever been there, Lloyd, but maybe I'll go now. They have a sign up there? No? Yeah. But he moved, and we're happy that he moved, to Riverview, Michigan, and he quarterbacked the Pirates to the 1962 state championship. Played his college football at University of Missouri, later at Northern Michigan University. Began his coaching career right here in Detroit at Nativity High School, so that got him going, and of course he would move on to coach at Eastern Michigan, at Illinois, and then he joined the University of Michigan under a guy named Bo Schembeckler, and later with Gary Moeller, before Lloyd took over as the interim head coach in 1995 and on a permanent basis shortly thereafter. Of course, his record with the Michigan Wolverines was outstanding, 122 wins, 40 losses, but he had a tremendous 19-8 record against top 10 teams. So this guy could, as we know, could get it done, including Big Ten championships and a national championship as well. So we honor tonight the man who just retired. So now he's got to figure out what he's going to do with himself in the next 30 years. Welcome, Lloyd Carr.
Thank you very much. It is indeed an honor to be here, and I first want to congratulate all of those honorees this evening. I became a Detroit Lion fan in 1955 when I moved here. My hero was Bobby Lane, and I wore his number 22 like all those other kids that wanted to be a quarterback. And I can never forget the voice of Van Patrick. And all of those come from behind wins that the Lions have. And so most of these men being honored here tonight were my heroes as a kid following our local team. And I especially want to mention three great Michigan men. Congratulate them. Bob Chappius. When I became the coach at Michigan, I asked Bob to come up and speak to our team because he was not only a great All-American on the field, he served this country and has one of the great stories, I think, of any college football player in history. And of course, the great John Green, and my boss now for the next 40 days, Dave Brandon, who grew up here as well. And for those of you who love Michigan, I assure you he is going to do one great job at the university. And as for me, I am so thankful because I've had the opportunity to have great high school coaches, phenomenal men who taught us a lot more than just the game. And then I had some great mentors, Alex Agassi and Gary Moeller and Bill McCartney. Terry Hamlin is here this evening, and of course the great Bo Schembeckler. And I was blessed with great players. And I think most of all, I was blessed to coach at the greatest university anybody could ever want to be a part of, the University of Michigan. And I would like to And I would like to echo how much admiration and respect that I have for this organization trying to do what they can. And I think it's a marvelous thing. And I hope to be a part of helping you with what I can do as we go forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lloyd. Well, he mentioned him, John Green, who was also born in Pennsylvania back in 1920, went to Westinghouse High School there. He made both the football, as we say in Muncie, wrestling teams. At the University of Michigan, he was a 3-year starter in football and was captain of the wrestling team and led the Wolverines to a Big Ten championship. He was also drafted by the Detroit Lions in the 5th round of the 1944 draft. He finished in the top 10 in the NFL in receptions, receiving yardage, and yards gained per reception, 4 different seasons, and finished his career with the Lions in 1950. And the Gridiron Greats are certainly pleased to be able to honor one of the greatest ends to ever play the game in John Green, and accepting for John is his former teammate, Wally Triplett.
I'm going to make this short, and I'm going to make some of it historical. There are a few people in here who know something about the Harlem Globetrotters, and they're basketball legends. And a few people in here who know something about the Renaissance, who are also basketball people. The reason I mention that is because on your program and in the introduction that we just went through, there was a whole lot of statistics given out as to what John Green did. I'm going to tell you something that John Dean did and showed the character of John Green and the future of the National Football League, as far as many of you are associated with. What I mean by that is I look in the paper and I look on the television and I see these things where we have faces in there that are somewhat like mine. And I want you to know that could not have happened if the star that John Green was, and some other fellas in his same age at that time. America was ugly. I want you to get that in your mind. America was ugly when we came along. Okay? Now, it took a great deal of courage when I walked into that room in 1949 and the new coaches were assembled there along with the team. And the first thing that happened to me was John Green got up and walked across and shook my hand. I want to make sure you understand it. What I have done with my program, and I would encourage some of you to do with your program, is I took a big X, and where all that stuff is written about yards carried and made and touchdowns and catches and all, I put a big X in it. Because many of you are sitting out there blessed by the fact that John Green, who was a star nationally in the National Football League, walked over and shook my hand. And he said, welcome. He didn't say it as the first, he just said, welcome, Wally. And that was a big thing. Had John Green not done that, Had John Green not done that, all of or 75% of the National Football League today would have been in things like the Harlem Globetrotters. Entertainment only. And that's what I meant by that. So I took a pencil, as I said, and I X'd out the statistics. I would appreciate if you did. Because the only thing I want on there is that X that said, John Green walked over, shook my hand in Ypsilanti Normal Teachers College, where we were assembled to start the 1949 football schedule. And that is something nobody else can say to anybody else. Because when they congratulate me as being the first, I said, yeah. See, but I'll tell you who the first to shake my hand was John Green. And I'm going to ask his wife, Alice, to come and help me carry this thing back. It's heavy.
Our next honoree is Lynn Chadnoy. Lynn was born in the Upper Peninsula and also at Flint Central High School, earned all-state honors in both basketball and football. After graduating in 1944, he would join the United States Naval Air Corps and served for 2 years for this great country. He attended Michigan State University, and he ranked first in career interceptions with 20, was the team's MVP in 1948, an All-American the next season. He was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, 8th overall in the first round of the 1950 draft, and played 7 NFL seasons with the Steelers. Was named to a couple of Pro Bowls along the way. By the way, only Gale Sayers has a higher lifetime NFL kickoff return average than Lynn. And accepting for Lynn, who's recovering from a mini stroke, is former MSU great George Gary for Lynn Chadnoy. George?
I know what you're all thinking. I used to be 6'5" before I started playing football. I got a little better blocking than I feel a little taller. Thank you very much, Chairman Barr, for this opportunity. For my good friend Lynn Chadnoy. Our friendship goes back, would you believe, almost 75 years. The great city of Flint. In those days, on Saturdays, many of you who are my age will remember this. We used to play tackle, football, sandlot, start out Saturday morning, finish Saturday night. My first association with Lynn Chadnoy, just the beginning. From there, we went on to high school. We were teammates in high school. After the war, we were teammates at Michigan State University. I should say that although Shadrach, as we affectionately call him, look forward to this evening, but he's unable to attend because he's had a mini stroke. He's having trouble walking, and hopefully with therapy as he continues on, he'll be able to play some golf with us before too long. He asked that I be sure and congratulate all the inductees who are here this evening, prestigious group, And he also asked that I thank the nominating committee, whomever that might be, for this nomination. It's truly well deserved, believe me. Now, if Shadrach were here this evening, I think he would say how important friendships that he has built through his football experience. The importance of solid and lasting friendships, many of whom are here this evening to honor him. It seems like the older we get, Lloyd Carr, the more important long and enduring friendships become. It's important for many of those attending this evening who are great stars for the notoriety that they received, the adulations that they received over a period of time. But I think if Lynn were here, he would say something more important than that is the long and enduring friendships that he's made through his football, because of his football career, I might add. We've got, if I may, Chairman Mark, take just a moment to introduce some of the fine friends that he has built over the years who were here this evening honoring him. And I see at this table Dorn Dibble, one of the great Lions ends, who played with Bobby Lane, used to catch passes for Bobby Lane, and what great stories he has to tell about that association. Coach Henry Bullock is with us this evening. Coach Bullock has a great career in not only college football, but he had a great career in coaching in the professionals. But I might add, we also thank him for being the instigator of the Michigan State University Football Players Association. It's because of him that it's progressed and it's growing. And Coach Bulla, thank you very much for that. There's Archie Matsos, an NFL player for years from Michigan State. Marty Kelly, great football player from the Detroit area. And we have Con Demos with us also, who is secretary of the Michigan State University Football Players Association. Bud Erickson is with us also, and Bud was a great first baseman for Michigan State University as well, and together with his spouse, and Dorn has his girlfriend with him this evening also. Now, these are enduring friends, and I'd be remiss, I think, if we didn't introduce them. So, this day, many years later, going 65, 70 years, we still get together on a quarterly basis. We have lunch in mid-Michigan someplace, and many of our attendees are gone. Sonny Grindelius is gone, and Al Doro died here recently. So the enduring friendships that Shadnoy has built over the years is something that he wanted to make known this evening. So once again, Mr. Chairman, let me extend my heartfelt thanks to Mike Ditka and his group for the great work that they're doing with this foundation. And as Biggie would used to say, our great coach at Michigan State University, Lloyd, the difference between good and great is just a little extra effort. That's all, just a little extra effort. Thank you, Chairman.
Speaking of extra effort, we got to thank Mark Lewis, who has again put together a fabulous program for the Gridiron Greats, who are a nice end. He's hiding in the back of the room. Without him, this wouldn't happen. Nationally, we're glad for Marcus who's going to get done locally, so we appreciate it. Our next honoree is Tom Nowatsky, grew up in my home state, Indiana, Michigan City, Indiana. He earned All-State and All-American honors there, and said he had scholarship offers from 18 colleges, and he ended up selecting Indiana, and that's where he went. And he earned all Big Ten honors during his final 2 seasons. The first team All-American. He was inducted into the state of Indiana Football Hall of Fame, and also the Football Hall of Fame inducted him in 1996 from Indiana University. He was drafted with the Lions, 5th overall in the first round, and by the way, was also drafted by the New York Jets, but he decided to stick with the National Football League. And in 1966, he beat out a guy who, I know I remember the name, and certainly a lot of you do, Nick Petrosani. And so Tom would take over the chores there. He played until after the 1969 season. The Baltimore Colts would pick him up 3 days before the first game of that season. He started at fullback against the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl V. In fact, was the leading rusher and scored the game-time touchdown in Super Bowl V. He retired after the 1972 season. He's been president of the Detroit chapter of the NFL alumni for several years, so he's been very much involved in keeping alive the National Football League in Detroit. A nice hand for Tom Nowatzki.
Thanks, Mark. I was going to congratulate Mark because this was his brainchild 2 years ago. This is our second annual event. I want to personally thank everybody for coming. No one knows better than I do how much Mike Ditka has put into the Gridiron Greats. I sat next to him at one of the very first board meetings, and he has done so much personally and put some of his own money into this to help these guys. And our motto and our last logo was, do the right thing. And I was trying to think of one word that would describe this group of players, and I came up with the word pride through a good friend of mine, Jim Tunney. If you read on your computer, he has blogs that go out. And pride, and the word pride, all these guys develop and represent that word because P in pride means personal power, not position power. A lot of people become coaches and they try to rule because they're the coach, but they're not respected because they don't have any personal power. All these guys have personal power. And the R in pride means responsibility in getting things done, making things happen. Mr. Brandon, there's a lot of people looking at you to make things happen in Michigan. And all these guys do that. I in pride is integrity. Every one of these individuals have integrity. And they're respected. And the D stands for determination. None of these guys ever quit on the field or in their personal life. They're determined. E stands for everyone. As Mr. Varney said, a turtle didn't get to the top of the post without help. There's a team. There's no I in team. So this is what I think represents the 15 guys that I'm very, very lucky to be a part of. Joe, I've never thanked you for getting rid of me in 1960 or 1970, personally. But I also know that it wasn't Joe Schmidt's decision. They tried to make me a linebacker from a running back. In fact, I broke my neck for Mr. Lucci over there because he was hurt one day. But it was a blessing for me to go to Baltimore, play with Mr. Matty, Mr. Unitas, and win the Super Bowl. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. And I really appreciate this honor. I thank you all for coming. I want you to know one thing. We have a golf outing coming up August 2nd. The alumni does the Gridiron Greats Alumni Golf Outing. It's the first annual Gridiron Greats Alumni Golf Outing. We have 27 teams. We need 3 more. Nora's here someplace. So if you want to play, contact her. But thank you very much, and congratulations to all the rest of you guys.
Thanks, Tom. Michigan State University's Walt Kowalczyk was from Massachusetts, prepped at Westfield, Massachusetts, and then chose Michigan State University because of the influence of his high school football coach, who was an MSU grad and certainly knew about Duffy Doherty. So that's where Walt started, right halfback for the Spartans for 3 years. First team All-Big Ten as a senior in 1957. He led MSU to the Rose Bowl in January 2nd of 1956. In fact, he was the MVP of the Rose Bowl. His senior season, he became a consensus All-American, was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was in the first round in 1958, 6th overall. He was traded to the Detroit Lions in 1960, and then traded on to the Dallas Cowboys, and traded again to the Oakland Raiders, where he would play. He returned to the state of Michigan and began teaching in Pontiac and really doing things that make him a great man, as well as a great athlete. He left the public schools, began working for traffic safety, part of Wayne County's program in highway safety education. He worked with persons convicted of drunk driving and then served as a substance abuse counselor. So he's had an interesting and great life, and he's now a member of our Gridiron Greats Hall of Fame, Michigan State's own Walt Kowalczyk. Walt.
Things heavy. From the sandlots, playing in an open field, to high school, to college, and here. From Bill Jenkins, my high school coach, to Duffy. There is no other coach other than Duffy. To Sonny Grandelius. Now I am here. I'd like to thank the committee for selecting me to be with such an elite group of athletes, something in my wildest dream I would never have really thought of. Hank Bulla, whoever Hank is sitting, I have to thank him for initiating me into the Big Ten. I reminded him about this afternoon, when we were just resting and lounging around, getting ready for this evening, where my first encounter with the Big Ten was a scrimmage against the varsity, and I was a snotty-nosed freshman, and they used us as guinea pigs all the time, and played a linebacking position, something that was not familiar to me, and I was told what to do, and I did it. Unfortunately, so did the other guy do it. And when I turned around and I looked, lo and behold, who do I see but a Mack train, Hank Bulla, coming right at me, and he just put me into the nickel seats. That was my initiation into the Big Ten at Michigan State University. I'd like to thank the committee for selecting me to be with this elite group. As I said before, it's something that I never in my wildest dream would ever have thought that it would happen to me. Thanks to the committee, and thanks to you, and congratulations to all the other fellas that are going to be inducted this evening as well. Thank you.
Still getting.
Our next honoree is Bob Champius, who grew up in Toledo, Ohio. And he opted to go to the University of Michigan, even though he's from Toledo, Ohio. He was opposed to Ohio State because his father just didn't like Ohio State. That's good enough reason, Lloyd, right? Yeah, just didn't like Ohio State. His predecessor as Michigan's halfback was the Heisman Trophy winner, the great Tom Harmon. Bob's college years were interrupted by service in the United States Army, Air Force. During World War II, he flew 21 missions as a radio operator and aerial gunner on B-25s in the European theater. His aircraft was shot down in 1945 in northern Italy. He parachuted from the plane before it crashed, and Italian partisans were able to save him and hide him and two other crew members for the final 3 months of World War II. He led the 47 Michigan team, known as the Mad Magicians, to an undefeated season, a 49-0 win over USC, USC in the 1948 Rose Bowl game. He was a unanimous All-American selection in 1947. In fact, was second in the Heisman Trophy balloting in 1947. He also played professional football in the American Football Conference as a quarterback for the Brooklyn Dodgers and the Chicago Hornets. He was elected to the College Football Hall of Fame in 1988. Welcome, Bob Champius.
Thank you. I'd like to stand up, but it's pretty difficult for me right now. I think it was a time we were playing against Michigan State, and I was basically an offensive player. And I did most of the passing for the team as well. But on this one play, I went out into the flat for a pass. And it's the only pass I ever caught. And I was glad because I got hit by Lynn Chandnoy's, and I have a picture in my den of me on top of his shoulder, kicking my legs, you know, and I never have forgotten it. And right now I'm suffering I'm suffering the after effects of what my two friends here said. But anyway, it was a great experience to be able to play for the University of Michigan and to be able to have a coach like Fritz Kreisler. He was probably the greatest motivator that you could possibly have. And it was all done sort of negatively. And as I said, I was an offensive player, but the one game that I played defense was against the Army. And I thought they had a whole battalion with them. And at any rate, where was I? Well, that's pretty typical after I got hit with Chandnoy. I don't remember too much. Well, I won't go on any longer because I think this has been a long evening, and I'll just thank everybody who had anything to do with this. And I've enjoyed being here and enjoyed meeting the people. And I thank you all very, very much.
Our next honoree, Tom Madden. I grew up as a kid. I was a huge Baltimore Colts fan. I loved the Colts and the greatest quarterback ever, Johnny Unitas. And I never forgave the Colts when they traded Johnny Unitas. Tom Madden had a chance to not only play, but he was actually a quarterback. You might remember he filled in as a quarterback. Both Johnny Unitas and Drake Quazzo were down with injuries. And so Tom Madden took over as the quarterback for the Baltimore Colts. He's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, went to Ohio State University, and he is in the Ohio State Hall of Fame and was named to the Pro Bowl both 1968 and 1969 with the Baltimore Colts. He played in 2 Super Bowls. He earned a ring in Super Bowl V, and the Colts beat the Dallas Cowboys. And of course, Super Bowl III, ran for 116 yards, got a couple of passes in that game. We'd like to welcome him to Detroit, Tom Madden.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and especially being a Buckeye. You know, we're not welcome very often, but it's a pleasure to be here. And I just so happen to have Bo Schimbecker was a coach at Ohio State,
And he was the guy I had to report to, and he probably ended up as probably one of my greatest friends in football, period. And he recruited my brother Bruce when he was at Miami of Ohio. And all he had to say to my brother Bruce is, do you want to be treated like you were at Ohio State by Woody Hayes? And my brother said, not exactly. So he went to Miami of Ohio, became an All-American, and did a great job. I want to say a special thank you to Mike Ditka, Gridiron Greats, and the job that they're doing. We have a similar operation in Baltimore called Fourth and Goal, which we try to help players. It's interesting because nobody said too much about it, but we all kicked the bucket pretty early, and a lot of the people that we're trying to help are the wives of the players who are in dire need also. And so I think it's this kind of operation, if we can set these kind of banquets up across the country and raise the funds that are necessary, and if we can all get together as a group, all the different fractions that we have out there that are trying to help the old-time players, it would be fantastic to do. I've got a great reputation of being a substitute quarterback, and I will tell one story because everybody's so serious. Unitas had asked me, he had a knee operation, and he said, Don, would you do me a favor and speak at an institution in Baltimore called Shepherd Pratt? And I said, sure, John. I said, what's Shepherd Pratt? He said, well, it's a mental institution. And I said, John, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, tell them your experience of playing quarterback. And I said, oh, okay. So I walk into a room about half this size, everybody's dressed in white robes, and they've got guards at the door. So I'm a little apprehensive right away, and this doctor introduces me, and he says, Mr. Matty, I says, yes, sir. He says, you're the rottenest quarterback I've ever seen in my whole life. And I says, you know, I don't profess to be a quarterback. I'm not John Unitas, that's for sure, but I got the job done. He sits down about halfway through the speech. He says, Mr. Matty, I says, yes, sir, what can you do? What do you need? He says, well, you're not only a rotten quarterback, you're a lousy halfback. I said, well, I'm not Gale Sayers or, you know, any of the big boys, but I said, or not Lenny Moore, but I said, I get the job done. And now I'm getting a little hot, and some of the guys here know that I have a little temper. And so just before I end my speech, he raises his hand again. I said, what do you want? He says, you're not a rotten quarterback, lousy halfback. You can't even talk. I said, well, thank you very much. And I said, I'm out of here. I got to get out of here. John, what got me in this, I said, I'm playing this substitute role, trying to be a good guy. And this doctor comes running up to me and he says, Tom, he says, you don't know what an inspiration you've been to these people tonight. I says, you got to be kidding. He says, no, you know the guy in the back room was asking all those questions? I says, yeah. He says, that's the first intelligent thing he said in 6 months. Anyway, I thought I'd cause a little levity out of that. Being here and being honored up here is very special to me. And the guys that are here and being honored are very, very special football players. We sure didn't make the money the kids are making today. There's no question about that. And people ask me, don't you wish you were born about 30 years too early? Or 30 years too early for this? And I says, yes, I am, but I would never change the opportunity that I had to play in this era. We had fun, we were disciplined, we had respect for each other, and it was a great game. And I was really proud to be part of it. Thank you.
Our next honoree is a good friend. Came here from Miami, where he was a great player at the University of Florida. He somehow matriculated from Miami to the University of Florida and was selected by the Detroit Lions in the first round, 6th overall back in the 1985 draft. He was named to 6 consecutive Pro Bowls. He had to go to another team to get a Super Bowl ring. That's the one thing we regretted, because he was such a great player and he had the opportunity, and we'll probably talk about it, the honor to block for the greatest running back I've ever seen in Barry Sanders, the third number 20 then. Third number 20, Billy Sims was the other one, of course. But he finished his career with the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I left Tampa Bay. We never got close to the Super Bowl. No, we did one time. 1979, we got to the NFC Championship game with Doug Williams. That was about it. Columbus got a Super Bowl already. And he is still here in Detroit, still a big part of the Detroit community, and we're happy to honor him, Lomas Brown.
Thank you all. I got my tennis shoes on for comfort. You know, I got these old feet now from my NFL days, so I'm trying to protect what I have left. Just like Mark said, first of all, I'd like to thank the Detroit Lions for giving me my first professional opportunity. And then I would like to thank the Detroit Lions for drafting number 20, Barry Sanders. Because I don't think without him I would be standing here today, because he was just a great player to play for. Really though, it's all about the Gridiron Greats tonight. I really want to thank Coach Ditka. Have the opportunity to work with him or see him up there at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut every Sunday during the NFL season. But I just think it's a great thing what they're doing for all us. You know, I'm a younger retiree, but I am a retiree. But I was fortunate enough to play in 3 decades, the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. And you can kind of see the changes that were made, some of the progresses that were made with the NFL. We're trying to help out some of these players. I just hope the NFL continues to do what's right, which is to take care of the guys that are really responsible for guys like me, Ron Rice, Tim Walton, guys that play this game. Because guys like Lim, Coach Ditka, all the guys that came before us, they paved the way for us guys. So I just want to thank the Gridiron Greats. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Our next honoree is also from the University of Michigan. Apparently there's a lot going on at that school from what I understand, what I'm reading. He was at the University of Michigan on a football scholarship in 1970 out of South Lyon High School, earned 9 varsity letters there. Pretty doggone impressive. He did not earn 9 varsity letters at the University of Michigan, but was a solid athlete and a contributor. And later in Wisely joined Procter & Gamble, then moved on to Velasquez Communications, and most recently chairman of the board, CEO of Domino's Pizza. But then got a call. He was on the board of Regents, University of Michigan, but they turned to him. They turned to a Michigan man to turn around the program there and keep it going upwards, and he is doing that. David Brandon announced as the new athletic director at the University of Michigan in January. And of course, he is being honored tonight for participating at one of the highest levels of football by being at U of M, but more importantly for his generosity and giving back to the community. And he embodies what the Gridiron Greats organization is all about, and that is giving. Nice welcome to the athletic director at the U of M, David Brandon.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks, everyone. I am a token, non-great Gridiron Great here tonight, but nevertheless, I'm honored to be named among this group and to receive this honor. I would like to try to pretend that I was an outstanding football player at the University of Michigan, but Coach Hanlon is here. He was my coach, and he would stand up and call me on it. So I will tell you that the 3 years I was on the varsity, we won the Big Ten championship every year. We lost 1 game in 3 years to that team down in Columbus. But I have already spoken to you longer than my playing time in one of those years. But I left there with 3 Big Ten championship rings, and I actually do give myself credit for being an NFL player. Because when I was 13 years old, I became a national finalist in the punt, pass, and kick contest, representing the Detroit Lions. I had my little junior Detroit Lion uniform, and I competed then at Tiger Stadium. Joe Schmidt was my captain. And I made it all the way out, and I competed on national television in front of 55,000 people at a playoff game at the Los Angeles Coliseum, and I got Johnny Unitas's autograph because he was sitting on a bench on crutches. and Tom Madden was the quarterback. And I got your autograph too. It's worth a lot of money, I'm sure. That's as close as I ever got to NFL greatness. And you might ask yourself the question, how does a kid that's second in the nation in the pump, pass, and kick end up not being a great NFL player? And the difference is in the pump, pass, and kick, they don't hit you. And I was a lot better then. But nevertheless, I'm a proud representative of the University of Michigan as a former player. I'm very, very proud to recently be named the athletic director of the university. I love the place. I got a big job ahead, but I'm up for it. I really appreciate being associated with the incredible legends that are here tonight. It's a great honor for me and for my family. I appreciate it very much, and this cause is a wonderful one, and anything I can do to help out, I want you to know I'll be there. Thank you very much, and go Gridiron.